sorry, it's a sales pitch, but how we have really made sure that this is an enterprise-ready technology. It configures to your needs, whatever your needs are. It configures to your language, because every language is going to be different. And it actually is a very secure technology, so that your data is not going to go out of your firewall at all. I will close with this. 5,000 years ago, we developed Abacus, right? And not us, as in humans, right? And 5,000 years we developed Abacus, and since then we have gotten very good at counting and dealing with structured data that can be put in tables. But as in this forum, when we are thinking about technologies for tomorrow, we have to think about the way people naturally are. And hopefully this is just a start, it's just language, but it could be for any other structured data. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you very much. Hi everyone. I am thankful here, surrounded by snow, to be invited by India's sunrise state, Andhra Pradesh. And I'm also inspired by Chief Minister Chandrababu Naidu to address a live stream, because our company is currently following the live stream of this presentation, and I would like to address our team. And not only by showing my own face, because they actually see my face quite a lot. I'm going to next. Can my presentation be put on? Well, I think we both are struggling with the same issues of connecting a live stream nowadays in 2018 at the World Economic Forum. I wanted to compliment you that 15 Mbps in remote homes everywhere in your state, that's really something promising indeed. There we are, so there I start. I represent Vizi. I co-founded Vizi and I'm CEO of Vizi. Vizi comes from physics and seeing, because that's what we do. We look with a physics perspective at the world around us. And when we look at the world around us, we have realized that we spend 90% of our time in buildings. And those same buildings are responsible for 40% of all electricity consumption. And we are fighting for a mission, which is a long-term mission, to reduce that amount of energy consumption, to make an energy neutral built environment. But the theme of today is technology for tomorrow. And that is something, as a startup founder, I realized really early on, is that you need to develop and go to market as quickly as possible. And that's what we did. We investigated the market and we realized that currently building owners, renters, investors already are installing automated blinds, tintable glass, air ventilation. At the same time, they want to maximize daylight for happiness, but they also want sustainable buildings. So already out there in the market, there is a very direct need for technology to make buildings more comfortable, so people get more happy and productive, but also to make buildings more sustainable, so that we can enjoy our planet for a longer time. And therefore, we have developed a product portfolio. Our power window is an electricity generating window which is fully transparent and can supply the electricity to all components in the facade that need electricity. Our smart window senses temperature, light, and communicates it to the internal building climate control systems, but also to communicating systems of municipalities and governments. We store our electricity in local energy storage, which we call our easy boxes, and we give access to actually be in contact with your own glass via our easy app. We enable people to have the glass think for them and make their life more comfortable. And we have developed a technology which can be distributed all over the world easily. Why? Because we have a very simple component which we can supply downstream and which we are actually already have been installing in both construction and renovate in the Netherlands. And we are now focusing on new projects, but what I dislike about this, and of course I'm happy with the customers that we have here, but what I dislike about this, it are always the fancy buildings adopting the most state-of-the-art technologies first. We, and when I say we, that's our team with 15 people out of which are 7 nationalities. We want to make smart offices, smart houses available to everyone. And therefore we have to go to scale quickly. We have to go to India's sunrise state quickly to reduce our production costs and give everyone the opportunity to enjoy a smart house and home. Thank you. I don't want to steal it, so I'll leave it right here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ferdinand. And thank you for your indulgence, ladies and gentlemen. We know we are running a little behind time. We'll just change the setting for the panel discussion, which will be a 20-minute thing. And I'll just hand over the floor to Shireen. Shireen Bhan is the managing editor of CNBC TV 18, our media partner for today. And she's also a World Economic Forum Young Global Leader. So while the stage is set for the panel discussion, it's over to Shireen.
Thank you very much, Amit. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you to all of our presenters here, including the Chief Minister, for giving us a sense of where things are headed, not just in 2018, but in the foreseeable future. At CNBC TV 18, I run a show called Young Turks. It is India's longest running show on startups. So we started tracking startups well before startups became sexy in India. So we're very happy to be here to partner with this event to talk about the technology disruptions that we're likely to see. I think the stage is set. May I request all of our panelists to start getting seated, sir? May I request you to join us?
Come.
Please go ahead, sir. Can we have our tech disruptors join us on stage as well, please? Jack, Raj. Yeah. Yeah. Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's for you. Hi.
All right. Mr. Naidu, if I could start by asking you, sir.
Yes.
We have 20 minutes, and I don't want to get the bells ringing again. So let me start by asking you, what is going to be the big focus area for you? You've believed in e-governance in your previous term as Chief Minister as well, but in addition to everything that you've already sort of articulated for us, the vision that you have using technology for the state, give me a sense of 2018. What is going to be the priority and the focus?
Now 2018, we are reaching a stage. Now people are using so many devices, Alexa or Google, so many things. By doing all these things, any grievance of any citizen to government, if you can voice recognition or other authentication, we can solve all the problems.
Okay.
It may be pension, it may be ration, it may be power connectivity, anything for that matter. I am very happy so many people are here. I have to integrate everything. I am having all the data available. It is a wonderful time.
Specifically, what are you going to do to ensure that you create a robust ecosystem for technology disruptors to operate out of the state?
What I am saying, ultimately you have to give cost effective and also most livable. When it happens, all these things, if you create wealth, if you can maintain sustainable development goals, then only it will happen. All these developments are going to add towards that. My stakeholders are my citizens.
Yeah.
I have to provide better, best living standards, no poverty, all power security or gas security, fiber security, all security I have to give him real time.
Okay, in real time. Jack, let me ask you about the opportunities that India throws up. In the light of the fact that we've got a government that believes that less cash is the way to go, we saw the demonetization exercise. We've seen digital payments rise significantly since then. So how do you sort of see the Indian context today, and what do you believe is the need of the hour now to ensure that this continues?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just start by saying, you know, certainly from where we sit, there's probably no single market in the world that represents more potential for broadening inclusion and expanding access to financial services through electronic payments than India. And we're excited to work with the government in India and Andhra Pradesh to unlock that, because both governments are making all the right moves to put themselves in the lead in terms of the way that they're supporting and driving innovation. So, from our perspective at Visa, what is it going to take? I think it's going to take continued investment in public and private partnership to continue to drive more merchants, more consumers into the fold with respect to electronic payments. I mean, as you mentioned, demonetization was a great start. When demonetization occurred, penetration of electronic payments in India was at 7%.
Yeah.
It's at 50% globally. So we have a long way to go, but we've made a lot of progress in a very short space of time, supported by investments in innovation by companies like ours, but moreover by the Indian government itself.
Before I get to Raj, you spoke specifically about public-private partnerships and how that is nurturing this digital payments ecosystem. Specifically, what is it that you would like to see the government put on the table?
Well, from a payment standpoint, it's complicated. You have to get a lot of things right to really get the cash out of the system. You've got to get the consumer there. You've got to get the merchant there. You've got to get the financial sector there. We certainly can't do it on our own, and no single player in the payments ecosystem can do it on its own. So we turn to government as a strong partner to help lead the way and set the scene and set the tone and make the right investments. What the Chief Minister talked about earlier in terms of just being declarative that less cash and cashlessness is important is all by itself an important move that governments can make. But furthermore, active support in converting government itself to electronic payments acceptance, which we've seen happen in Vizag and Andhra Pradesh, which we're really excited about.
So what kind of investments are you willing to make in India, given the big opportunity that you see?
Oh, we're very invested in India. I mean, at Visa, we've been in India for 30 years.
Yep.
And we have invested probably more in the last 2 years, both from a payment standpoint, but also just from a human capital standpoint, and expanding our footprint all over the country. And we're just going to continue to invest on both dimensions, because we feel there's just so much potential there.
Raj, where do you see potential? Where do you see the most opportunity that you can capitalize on?
There's two areas we've invested in India in the past year in 2017. The first is around payments. So we're big believers in the fact that there is more space in the payments market, even with Paytm and other large players. We think that there's more innovation coming in the space. We invested in a great company in the space late last year, and we were lucky to get in before the demonetization happened. And the company's grown incredibly fast since then. The second space where we see a lot of opportunity is Indian entrepreneurs thinking more globally, specifically about enterprise software. We're invested in a company where the development and most of the engineers are in India. They have a front end in the US, which is important from a sales perspective, but we think this is a huge opportunity. And as India grows, I think India has the ability to adopt some of the Israeli model and some of the China model. And China, where it's been a lot about local consumers, and as Indian consumers pass, $10,000 in GDP per capita, we think that's very exciting. But on the other hand, it still will take time. So India thinking more globally and building businesses for outside of India, which is much more the Israel model, is one that we think will also work in India.
Okay, so a marriage of the Chinese and the Israeli model. If you're betting on payments and start software as a service at this point in time, in 2018, what's going to be the big idea that you would like to bet on?
The next frontier for us, for India, is digital health. We think healthcare in India will be transformed. Younger people who have more discretionary income, who are more aware of their health and want better treatment options, and elderly people. And when you combine that with a large portion of people who are not near a primary care provider, we think enterprise software in digital health is the next frontier in India.
Okay, digital health, next frontier. Let me ask you about the opportunities that you see in India, and what looks ripe at this point in time from a bet that you would like to make.
Sure. So, look, in general, AI, IoT and blockchain have been referred to here today a few times, and that won't surprise anybody. listening to your presentation, I think about open, decentralized platforms as what should underpin some of that. You talked about a central hub. Well, it's going to be logically centralized, but physically decentralized and open to all parties, society, government, and business.
Yes. Since you're talking about blockchain, and this is the big buzzword that everybody's sort of trying to understand and grapple with at this point in time, governments included. In India, and I think this is something that governments around the world are dealing with, how do you treat cryptocurrencies? What do you do with Bitcoin, for instance? And I think this is a conversation that currently is consuming the Indian government as well. It's not legal tender, but then do you regulate it? Do you allow it to happen? Where do you see the future for cryptocurrencies and for things like Bitcoin?
Sure, okay, that's a very good question. So let's talk about a Bitcoin as a first generation blockchain protocol. And it was designed, it's a fantastic invention. Designed to be a cryptocurrency, but today I think we could all agree that it's not necessarily being used as a prevalent medium of exchange. So it's more of a speculative instrument right now. But what underpins it, of course, is a fantastic invention which has proven consensus mechanisms, and it's also proven that we actually don't need a company in the domain of the intermediary. Now, this is a big deal.
Yeah.
If you think about the business models of the last 30 years, the last 3 decades, a majority of the most successful business models have been dominated by intermediaries. So you think about banking, exchanges, eBay, Facebook, Google, Amazon, Airbnb, Uber, they're all intermediaries. Blockchain eats intermediaries for breakfast. So it sounds like a very outlandish statement to say that the new economy darlings are now the most vulnerable organizations on the planet, but that's true. But that's trillions of dollars of value that's migrating to decentralized systems where there will be no company. Now, in terms of currency, so in third generation protocols beyond Bitcoin and Ethereum, we'll see that cryptocurrencies become pegged to things like fiat currencies, or better still, baskets of fiat currencies. So we'll have inherent stability in those, and they'll become a medium of exchange, and tokens will be something else. They'll be important to the proper functioning of the system. So these things pull apart.
How critical will it be for central banks to support cryptocurrencies if we need them to work?
Well, they will, and in fact, a number of central banks already have been exploring for quite some time issuing crypto-based fiat, which of course would be a form of pegged. A couple of Western economy governments have been concerned about the demise of cash in their society.
Yes.
So we had another GFC or a worse event, then cash is often, or money is existing on bank-issued plastic. So if financial institutions cease to exist, there would be no money. So central banks are realizing that they need to have an alternative to cash, which is not dependent upon banks.
So given the fact that you see the activity in the Bitcoin, especially at this point in time, is largely speculative, do you believe that we're headed for a bust?
I think that I've been saying that I'm not. Bitcoin is not the main game.
Yeah.
The main game is decentralized open platforms, where entire industries are transformed. So we're working on a diamond platform at the moment, a ticketing platform, transportation. These are pan-industry platforms, and they account for far greater opportunity and value than. Basically Bitcoin is 3 or 4 columns on a spreadsheet, an address, a balance, access control script. Fantastic invention. We should all laud it. So we're standing on the shoulders of giants.
Yes.
But it is what it is. The game ahead of us is much larger and much more impactful for society, business, and government.
Okay, Mr. Naidu, you've heard from our 3 panelists here talking about some of the areas that they're interested in, the opportunities that they see in India. Digital health or payments specifically. What is it that you would like to see from them as they partner with you?
No, it is a fact now. Future is for digital currency. Even I was the chairperson for the digital currency in India after demonetization. We have discussed thoroughly. There is a lot of prospects. We have given recommendations also. In this, there are 2 aspects. Even physical currency should be costlier than digital currency.
Yeah.
Then automatically it will take off.
So you penalize the use of cash. Okay.
That is what I'm saying.
Right.
Then automatically it will pick up. People are very smart. In India, everybody is having smartphone. Microsoft, by studying Indian conditions, now they have developed Kaizala app. This is one app where multiple messages, multiple data, multiple layers you can send simultaneously. That is how it has done.
Okay.
So we are very clear. Cell phone is enough for future.
Yes.
To do business anywhere in the world.
Well, penalizing cash would be music to your ears, Jack.
Not only there.
It sounds great.
No, not only from their part, not only service providers, even government. Government are the best beneficiaries out of it.
You know, whether it's here in Davos or the CEO surveys that have been done by PwC and Deloitte and so on and so forth, the cyber threat is emerging as one of the sort of big challenges that CEOs are having to deal with, and they're going to have that conversation at the top level. What do you see in 2018 around this area, and how do you see CEOs positioning themselves to face that challenge? Let me start by asking you.
I think that if we continue on this thread around open decentralized platforms, we had Bitcoin, and Ethereum's brought logic into the network. As we move into third generation protocols, what we're dealing with is a limitless decentralized world computer that anyone can use. And it'll be far more tamper-proof, robust and secure than any centralized system that you can develop today. Mm-hmm. And eventually people will again, sounds like another outlandish statement, will decommission 80 to 90% of their internal IT infrastructure and make use of this world compute platform.
Wow.
It will come with security, administration, everything else decentralized and as part of the protocol and the system. So you won't have to solve those problems entirely.
And how soon do we get here?
Well, we'll see these next generation protocols emerge mid this year to second half of this year. This is the paradigm shift is about to be upon us. This false sense of security that we've been lulled into by
Are people
current
prepared
protocols.
for this paradigm shift that you're talking about?
Not at all, no. So there's huge opportunity there for those who are willing to get ahead of the curve.
Raj, just picking up on the paradigm shift that we just heard, you know, what do you think is the thinking at this point in time? Because it's interesting, Deloitte put out a Future Ready report, and it's interesting to see that the Indian CEOs were the least optimistic of the benefits of embracing Industry 4.0, because they believe that it will impact jobs and it will then create social upheaval and so on and so forth. How do you see the impact of these new disruptive technologies on job creation, on emerging markets like India?
I think that it's a very important question for all of us to answer as technologists and investors, and I'd commend the Chief Minister. I think he's done a great job in terms of figuring out how to make technology and innovation much more inclusive. And for me, the most important thing government can do is exactly that, to figure out, to Jack's first point, which is how can government be a user of new types of technologies, and how can they make it more inclusive for people to be entrepreneurs and to leverage that kind of technology. I do think that as these disruptive technologies come, there's not a question of are they coming, it's how do we prepare for them.
Yeah.
And so, you know, for Indian CEOs, I think that there's much more of an opportunity than there is a threat. And if you go way back, I'm old enough that I was an entrepreneur in the late 1990s, and when the whole Y2K era came, I think it was actually in some ways the launch of the Indian IT sector. Rather than looking at it as a threat, I think Indian entrepreneurs, especially in enterprise software, which is where a lot of this change will come, they should think about how they could really be the folks who are driving Industry 4.0 rather than letting it come to them.
You know, since we're talking about the inclusion agenda as well and using technology to be able to drive that, skills and reskilling, I mean, you know, we keep talking about the demographic advantage and the demographic dividend that India enjoys, but if we're talking about Industry 4.0, we're talking about, you know, the protocol, the third protocol that we're likely to move to sooner rather than later. What is it going to take from a government's perspective to try and reskill people? I mean, we have to think out of the box as far as education is concerned. Let me ask you, Raj, for your comments, and then I'll get the Chief Minister to address that as well.
I'm sure the Chief Minister will have much more interesting perspective on this. You know, from a technology perspective, what we believe is that education in many countries is really out of date. There's a few countries like Germany where they have been leaders in terms of how to reskill people without having to send them back for a 4-year degree. It's much more of using apprenticeship programs,
yes,
online learning. Reskilling people is very, very difficult. I think that's the first thing to start with. And most governments have not done it very well. And so understanding how to use technology to help people get reskilled is one of the key areas. But the question is, what are the areas that people should be getting skills in? You know, obviously we talk about areas like coding and areas like artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is not an easy area to reskill people. It's an area that takes a decade to become a PhD in artificial intelligence. Where we see a lot more opportunities in terms of reskilling people is in advanced robotics, in terms of how can machines and human beings work alongside of each other. And while machines will take away some of the jobs that we see, we think that there will be more jobs in terms of how do you maintain advanced robotics in areas like manufacturing. And those kind of maintenance jobs are ones that we think people can be reskilled to, and are the kind of jobs that government should be focusing on getting people reskilled in a shorter period of time.
Mr. Naidu, the jobs challenge, and how does a government try and address that? There's also a skills problem. You know, we just talked about the disruptive impact of technology, and on account of that, according to the latest NASSCOM study, you know, whether it's IT or manufacturing, 25% or so of the jobs that currently exist may not exist in the next 12 to 18 months. In that context, what does the government do?
Now, what I'm saying, existing jobs, there will be some threat. Always there will be new jobs. Technology with the disruptive technologies or technology will bring efficiency. By the way, governments will have more resources. We can spend all the resources again on development and also on employment creation. It is whenever you want to create wealth, you have to use technology. Technology is one side. It is a no more option. It is a compulsion. You have to adapt, or otherwise you have to perish. There is no other way. For that, better way to move forward by using technology, as you rightly mentioned, important subjects just like artificial intelligence, all these things, it is a technical subject, it will take some time.
But today, are you starting to incorporate that, for instance,
we are doing that.
System?
We are doing that. Even now blockchain technology, I am searching wherever there are courses. Recently I started fintech. These are all the new technologies. Originally I used to promote IT. Now latest technologies we are promoting now. Cyber security, all these things. What I wanted to impress upon everybody here, one is school education, college education, that is one, skill development, and also continuous learning lifelong. Lifelong learning is a must for future. If you learn something, I won't take a cell phone, you are outdated, you will have a problem. You have to learn how to operate cell phone.
Yes.
You need not be 10 years back or 20 years back. Nobody has gone for management courses. Now every course, management course is a must. Tomorrow I am telling you, technology course is a must. That is how things are changing.
Well,
one has to adapt it.
We will need relevant skills. The question is what those skills need to be for the future.
Yes.
I think that's what people are grappling with. Jack, I think we're pretty much coming to the end of our time. So let me ask you, the big disruptive idea that you believe we'll see play out in 2018, the biggest risk that you foresee as well for 2018?
Wow, the biggest disruptive idea in general?
Yeah.
Or in payments?
Payments. Since that's what you focus on.
Look, you know, the blockchain stuff that we talked about earlier is it's an important consideration. It comes up all the time as a potential big disruptive element.
You're smiling.
In consumer payments. And we should all consider it and be thinking about it in the future. It's not here yet. So that's probably not a 2018. I don't necessarily foresee India or a lot of other countries jumping into fiat issuance of cryptocurrency. So in the here and the now, I think we can actually embrace the technologies that already exist. Perhaps they're no longer disruptive, but the mobile connectivity that exists that has been so under-leveraged so far, we can do so much more with to drive more efficiency and more inclusion into society. So that's what we're going to be concentrating on over the next year. We'll obviously be working on and thinking about back in our labs in the background how we leverage things like cryptocurrency and blockchain. And in terms of risk, I think the risk is in action. I mean that is the big. I don't think there are a lot of really significant risks that can get in the way of the kind of progress that I am talking about making, other than we ourselves not taking it upon ourselves to partner.
So what's the innovation mantra at Visa currently? Do you acquire to innovate, or how do you grapple with the innovation challenge?
We very much see ourselves as a technology platform. We are an infrastructure platform that invites the world to come and innovate on top of us. So we're constantly trying to make ourselves easy and accessible. We work with fintech companies, we work with large companies and small companies, and we create services that power payments, throughout the world in that way. So that's very much our mantra and the approach that we take to innovation.
And where would India be in your pecking order of countries of strategic importance?
Well, it depends on which other countries are listening to the live stream. No, it's certainly in terms of potential for growth. It's right up there, top 1 or 2.
Okay, great, Raj.
I would just say I think India has massive scale, and it's really at an inflection point. We're really excited to be investing in Indian tech entrepreneurs. I've been to Andhra Pradesh once a long time ago for a different kind of pilgrimage, and I'd love to go back. And
how soon are you making that visit?
We've invested in several states in India so far. We haven't yet in Andhra, but it's a phenomenal state and one that we hope to be more involved in the future.
The big risk that you're going to be watching out for in 2018?
I think the biggest risk, I think Jack's point is a good one on inaction. I think the other risk that I see is overexuberance, that people believe that artificial intelligence, that blockchain, that these things are going to change the world tomorrow, and when they don't, and they, as expected, take a little bit longer, that we start to believe that they're not coming. And to me, that's the biggest risk.
Okay, that's the biggest risk. You've got 2 on that side, and you're in the other camp, if I could call it that. So it's coming, it's here. You're saying it's here.
Well, we're building it now. So I mean, I love it when incumbent intermediaries talk like that. It excites me. So I think you said it all, really. You have to keep your eye on the ball here. It's we've been lulled in a false sense of security because our current infrastructure in the decentralized universe doesn't scale, doesn't perform at scale, and we can't adequately govern the assets that we deploy onto this infrastructure. But that changes with next generation protocols. Now, the platforms we're building are aligned with that timeline. We'll be releasing them mid to late this year, the first industry platforms that will scale. So we'll see what happens. In terms of risk, I think you've already said it. It's just basically not getting lulled into that false sense of security and not waiting.
There's no room for complacency.
Not at all. I think there's enormous room for opportunity, particularly in what you described here today. I think it's fantastic. And I think
how soon are you going to be making your India pilgrimage?
I think I'd love to work with you on this. I think it increases participation in the global economy. That trillions of dollars of value I was talking about before is reapportioned across society, not just corporations. We've already established there's no company.
Yes.
So where does that value go? Well, it goes to people, goes to society.
Excellent. So let me end then by asking you, sir.
I'm very clear. All global players are here in different walks of life. We need all their support. Andhra Pradesh will be a pilot project. You can do all your demos there. I'm requesting
experiment in Andhra Pradesh. That's exactly what you're trying to say.
Experiment in Andhra Pradesh and scale it globally. First you come to Andhra Pradesh and go for globally. We are available for you. All 6 companies, innovative companies, startup companies, I already instructed my people. They will be in touch with you. They are after you now. Now we have to make it reality. I will be very happy for that. And also all our friends here, new technologies, even blockchain, fintech, even tomorrow cybersecurity, so many angles. We have to work it out. We have to prepare global citizens to adopt all these technologies. So I'm very happy. Everybody will join together. We will promote future technologies for benefit of the global citizens.
Well, we hope that that mandate that you've just articulated for us is in fact realized, and we see the three of them who've talked about the opportunities that India presents continue to incrementally invest in India and make their India pilgrimage as well. And Andhra Pradesh positioning itself as the incubator for interesting and disruptive experiments. So welcome to Andhra Pradesh and welcome to India, and thank you very much for joining us here on this very special panel discussion. Appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Then we are very keen to work blockchain in a big way.
Yes. Yes.
In touch with you.